Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we're looking at a really interesting way to push your English, especially if you're already at that C1 level. It's about using media. You probably already consume podcasts, music, TV, movies.
Right, but not just, having it on in the background.
Exactly. We're talking about actively using this stuff to get genuinely fluent, sort of spontaneous expression.
Yeah, going beyond the usual methods. If you're aiming for that real operational effectiveness, textbook stuff only gets you so far.
Totally. So this deep dive is for you if you want to get the key info quickly, understand it thoroughly, but without feeling, overwhelmed.
Precisely. We've gone through an article that really digs into this, and we're pulling out the most important insights, the actionable strategies.
Our mission, then, is to basically give you the shortcuts, the tools to harness the media you love for serious language gains.
Let's do it.
Okay, so authentic exposure. We all watch stuff, listen to music. Why is engaging with real media so critical for a C1 learner specifically? The article stresses this a lot.
Well, it's crucial because at C1, you're moving beyond just understanding words. You need to grapple with the nuances, right? Things like idioms, cultural references, different accents, the speed people actually talk at, stuff that's often, ironed out in language courses.
Right, the messy real-world English.
Exactly. Textbooks simplify, but that's where the advanced learning really happens in the complexity.
Okay, so the article breaks down the benefits. One that jumped out at me was pronunciation and intonation. How does listening to, say, a podcast help with that specifically?
It's about soaking it in, really. Your brain starts to subconsciously pick up the natural rhythm, the stress patterns, how native speakers flow.
It's not just hearing the sounds then, it's feeling the music of the language.
Precisely. You hear someone from London, then maybe someone from Texas, then Sydney. Your ear gets tuned to these variations.
And that makes your own speech sound more natural over time.
Yeah, it influences how you speak, subtly improving your own rhythm and intonation. Plus, your listening comprehension gets way better.
And vocabulary. The article mentions getting loads of idioms and phrasal verbs this way, things that are hard to just memorize from a list.
Oh, absolutely. Because you're learning them in context. You hear an idiom in a movie scene, you see the situation, the emotion, it clicks.
Right. It's not just a definition.
No, it's the feel of the word or phrase. Slang, colloquialisms. They come alive in real media. They stick in your head much better.
That makes sense. And the cultural context piece seems huge, too. Language isn't just grammar, is it?
Not at all. It's tied completely to culture. You can know all the rules, but if you miss the joke or the unspoken assumption,
you can misunderstand or sound awkward.
Exactly. Media is like a window into that. You see the humor, the social cues, the values, things a textbook just can't convey effectively.
And practically speaking, listening to all this real, fast-paced talk must be amazing for just pure listening skills.
Definitely. It's like a workout for your ears. You're training your brain to follow speech at natural speeds, cope with different accents, even background noise sometimes.
Like real life, basically.
Yes. It rewires your auditory processing. You get better at filtering, predicting, filling in gaps. It's active listening practice.
And the article points out you're more likely to stick with it if you actually enjoy the content, right? Yeah. Motivation is key.
Hugely important. If you find podcasts or shows you genuinely love, learning doesn't feel like work anymore.
Okay, let's zoom in on podcasts. The article calls them a pocket-sized language lab. Why are they singled out as being so effective for C1?
Well, several reasons. They're super accessible, obviously. Listen anywhere.
Commute, Jim?
Right. But also, the sheer range of topics and speaking styles is incredible. You find discussions on anything, super niche stuff even.
So you get specialized vocabulary relevant to your interests.
Exactly. Plus, you hear loads of different accents and speeds, often in a conversational format that mimics real dialogue.
That exposure to diverse accents and speeds, how does actively dealing with that help? Is it just about understanding more people?
It's more than that. Actively trying to tune into different accents actually strengthens your overall listening ability. It makes you more adaptable.
Okay.
And following faster speakers or slower ones trains your brain to process information flexibly. It's really valuable training.
And the niche vocabulary thing, finding a podcast about, say, your specific industry, that's pretty powerful.
Yeah. Instead of just general words, you're building a lexicon you can actually use immediately. Very efficient.
It's interesting, too, that the article notes the lack of visuals in podcasts forces you to focus harder on the audio.
That's a great point. No visual crutches. Your brain has to work purely with the sound, the tone, the pauses, the emphasis. It really sharpens your auditory focus.
Okay, so podcasts are great. But just listening isn't enough, right?
Mm-hmm.
The article gives specific strategies. First, choose wisely. What does that mean for a C1 learner?
It means finding authentic content made for native speakers, not necessarily language lessons, and crucially, something you find genuinely interesting.
So, motivation again.
Absolutely. The source mentions things like BBC News programs, narrative shows like This American Life, conversational ones, like Stuff You Should Know.
All stuff.
Yeah. Though something like Luke's English podcast can still be good if you want that slight language focus. But authenticity and interest are key.
Strategy 2. Start with transcripts, if possible. How do we use those effectively?
They're a good bridge initially. Read along while listening. You connect the sounds to the words, spot new vocab.
Okay.
But the goal is to move away from them, yeah. Don't become dependent. Build up your ear.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Then active note-taking. What should we be writing down?
New words, obviously, but also cool sentence structures, idioms you liked, maybe a cultural note. Writing helps it stick.
And review them later.
Definitely. Regularly revisit your notes. It moves the learning from short-term to long-term memory. You're building your own resource.
Pause, rewind, replay. Sounds simple, but important not to feel pressured.
Totally. C1 content can be dense. It's okay to go back. It's good to go back. That repetition is part of the process. Don't just let it wash over you.
What about shadowing? Repeating what you hear, how does that help speaking?
Shadowing is brilliant. You're not just saying the words, you're trying to mimic everything. The rhythm, the intonation, the pauses.
Like muscle memory for your mouth.
Kind of, yeah. It trains your vocal cords and your ear together, leads to much more natural-sounding fluency. It's like learning music by ear.
And after listening, summarize and discuss. Why is that step important?
It activates your productive skills. Summarizing forces you to process and rephrase the information in your own words.
Deepens understanding.
Exactly. And discussing it, if you can, makes you articulate your thoughts, use the language actively.
Last podcast tip. Focus on specific language features, like hunt for phrasal verbs.
Yeah, it moves you from just listening for meaning to listening analytically. Notice how native speakers use certain grammar or vocab. That helps you use it better yourself.
Okay, cool. Let's switch to music. Universal appeal, right? How does music work for C1 learners?
Music is amazing because it engages your emotions and your brain. The melody, the rhythm, they make language incredibly memorable.
And singing along helps pronunciation.
Big time. You're actively matching the singer's timing, flow, how they connect words. It's very physical, kinesthetic learning for pronunciation and rhythm.
And the lyrics themselves, the article says they're full of everyday language, slang.
Yeah, lyrics often reflect how people really talk. Informal stuff, emotional language. And because it's set to music, embedded in a song you like, it sticks.
Like cultural snapshots, too.
Definitely. Themes in songs, love, protest, whatever, often mirror cultural values or trends. Analyzing lyrics gives you insights you wouldn't get elsewhere.
And the memory boost is undeniable. We all know song lyrics without trying sometimes.
Exactly. Music is a natural mnemonic. Melody, rhythm, rhyme, they create strong memory hooks. You can leverage that deliberately for language.
Plus, it's just enjoyable, which keeps you going.
Right. If learning feels good, you do more of it. Simple as that.
So strategies for music. First, choose diverse genres. Why not just stick to pop?
The different genres use language differently. Hip-hop might have more slang and faster delivery. Folk might have clearer narratives. Musical theater often has very clear articulation. Variety gives you broader exposure.
Then, find lyrics and translations. How best to use those?
Lyric sites are great. Try to understand the English lyrics first. Use translations just as a backup, a guide, not a crutch. The real work is deciphering the English.
The article has a 4-step process. Enjoy, read, look up, sing. Break that down.
Okay. 1, just listen and enjoy. Positive association. 2, read the lyrics, connect sound and text. 3, look up tricky words in context. Understand the nuance. 4, sing along. Practice pronunciation, rhythm, intonation. It's a cycle.
Lyric scramble, rearranging lines. Sounds fun but tricky.
It is, but it forces you to really focus on sentence structure, word order. Great for grammar awareness, actually.
Create theme playlists, like all songs about travel.
Yeah, exactly. You learn a related vocabulary in a natural, grouped way. Helps build semantic networks in your brain.
And for C1, analyze poetic devices, metaphors, similes, and lyrics.
Yes, because at this level, you're appreciating the artistry of language. Understanding figurative language deepens your comprehension and expressive ability.
Right. Moving on to TV shows and movies, the big advantage here is the visual context. Right?
Huge advantage. Visuals give so much extra information, Body language, facial expressions, setting, it all helps you decode the language, especially subtle meanings or tone. It's much closer to real-life interaction.
And you get that natural speed and flow again.
Yeah, you're training your brain to keep up with fast-paced, natural dialogue, overlapping speech, all the stuff that happens in real conversations. Crucial practice.
Plus, you observe social dynamics, how people talk differently in different situations.
Formal versus informal, polite versus angry. You see register in action, helps you learn how to adapt your own language appropriately.
And the variety of genres means huge vocabulary exposure.
Absolutely. Medical dramas, historical epics, comedies, each has its own world of words, great for building a wide-ranging vocabulary.
And again, it's often just plain entertaining. That keeps you watching, keeps you learning.
Exactly. Engagement is key. If you're hooked on the story, you absorb more language, often without realizing how hard you're studying.
So, strategies for TV and movies. Choose engaging content. Pick shows you actually like. Seems obvious, but important.
So important. If you enjoy it, you'll stick with it. The article mentions shows like The Crown for British English, Friends for American, complex stuff like Sherlock. Find your thing.
What about subtitles? The article suggests a strategic approach.
Right. The recommendation is often start with English subtitles, helps connect sound and text, but then push yourself. Try watching without subtitles. That's the real listening workout. Definitely avoid subtitles in your own language that just bypasses the English learning.
Good tip. Focus on specific scenes if the dialogue gets tough.
Yeah, break it down. Rewatch tricky bits. Pause. Listen carefully. Write stuff down. Don't just give up if you miss something. Dissect it.
Character voice mimicry. Trying to sound like a character.
It's like shadowing, but maybe more focused on one person's style. Good for practicing specific accents, rhythms, intonation patterns you like. Fun, too.
And vocabulary journaling again. Note words with context.
Yes. Always context. Where did you hear it? What was the situation? Maybe an example sentence. That's much better than just a word list.
And finally, discuss and review, and actively identify slang and idioms.
Talking about it reinforces learning. And actively hunting for informal language is crucial because so much TV-movie dialogue is full of it. You need to understand it to sound natural yourself.
Okay, wrapping up the strategies, the article gives some general tips for C1 learners using any media. First, consistency is key. Short, regular sessions beat long, rare ones.
Absolutely. 20-30 minutes a day is way better than a 3-hour binge once a week. It keeps the language fresh in your mind, allows for gradual absorption, like watering a plant.
Vary your media. Mix, podcast, music, video. Why?
Engages different skills. Podcasts, pure listening. Music, rhythm, vocab memory. Video, listening plus visuals. A mix gives you a more rounded workout.
Don't aim for perfection. It's okay not to get every word.
Yes. Especially at C1. Focus on the main ideas, the gist. Getting stuck on every single unknown word is demotivating. You'll pick up more over time with exposure. Trust the process.
Use technology, browser extensions, apps like Fluency or LingQ, pronunciation tools like Youglish.
These can definitely help. Instant definitions, interactive transcripts, checking pronunciation in real contexts. Use the tools available to support your learning.
Create an English-only environment.
Yeah.
Change phone settings, etc.
Yeah, immerse yourself as much as possible. Switch interfaces, read news in English, even try thinking in English. Constant passive exposure helps reinforce active learning.
Join online communities. Talk to other learners or natives.
Great for practice, getting different perspectives, building confidence, and staying motivated. Simulates real interaction.
Teach what you learn. Explaining it helps you understand it better.
Definitely. To explain something clearly, you have to really understand it yourself. It forces deeper processing.
Record yourself speaking or shadowing and compare.
Yes. Listen back. Compare your rhythm, intonation, pronunciation to a native speaker. Identify areas to work on. It can be revealing.
And finally, set SMART goals. Specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, time-bound.
Crucial for structure. Instead of, I'll watch more TV, make it, I'll watch one episode of The Office without subtitles each week and note 5 new idioms. That gives you focus and trackable progress.
Okay, let's make this real. The article shares 3 stories. First, Anya from Russia. Used podcasts on her commute, moved from B2 to much better fluency. Used transcripts, notes, shadowing.
Anya's story shows how consistency and active strategies really pay off. She didn't just listen, she worked with the podcasts. That focused effort made the difference.
Then Mateo from Argentina loved rock music, used lyrics and singing to improve fluency and vocab, especially idioms. Got way more expressive.
Mateo proves you should use your passions. His love for music made learning feel natural. Analyzing lyrics, focusing on singing it worked because he was genuinely engaged. The emotional connection helps learning stick.
And Lena from Germany. Good grammar, but struggled with natural speech, humor. Used TV shows, starting with subtitles, then removing them, focusing on nuances in shows like The Office, even tackling different accents.
Lena's journey highlights using visuals and gradually increasing the difficulty. Starting easy, reducing aids like subtitles, actively focusing on cultural nuances and unscripted speech. That's how she bridged the gap to understanding real, natural English.
So the big takeaway really is, these media forms, podcasts, music, TV, movies, they're not just downtime. For C1 learners, they are seriously powerful tools.
Absolutely. They offer authentic language, cultural insights, stuff that goes way beyond traditional methods if you use them actively.
It's about making that shift from just consuming to really engaging.
Exactly. Using the strategies we've talked about, it turns entertainment into effective learning.
So maybe the final thought for you listening is, how can you start weaving this kind of enjoyable, active engagement with media into your routine?
Yeah.
Think about how that shift could turn language learning from a chore into, well, something you genuinely love doing.
And that passion, that enjoyment, is often the fastest route to true fluency and really appreciating the English-speaking world.
Thanks for taking this deep dive with us.